Have you ever been in a meeting knowing exactly what you're talking about? Maybe even being the smartest person in the room on that specific topic, and yet you somehow felt like nobody was actually listening to you? Well, you are definitely not alone. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're looking at a completely fascinating breakdown of executive communication. We're specifically targeting a really counterintuitive struggle that plagues highly intelligent professionals. We're going to unpack the hidden communication systems used by elite negotiators, CEOs, and Fortune 500 leaders to command a room, and exactly how you can apply them right now. It's a massive pattern interrupt, isn't it? Why does high intelligence often sound like low confidence? We usually just assume that being smart automatically equals being commanding. But in reality, some of the absolute most capable, brilliant minds sound incredibly hesitant when they speak out loud. If you've ever been told you need more executive presence, or if you find yourself getting talked over by people who know literally half as much as you do but just speak twice as loud, the concepts we're about to explore are absolutely going to change the way you approach every single conversation from here on out. The source material defines this perfectly as the intelligence paradox. And right off the bat, I want to validate exactly what's happening in your brain. When you hesitate, when you use filler words, or when you fail to sound 100% certain, it's rarely because you're actually weak or lack knowledge. It's actually a direct byproduct of your intellect. Your mind is rapidly processing complex nuances, alternative scenarios, and all these multiple perspectives in real time. You're trying to be perfectly accurate. And because the real world is rarely just black and white, your speech naturally becomes hesitant as you try to navigate all that gray area out loud. But here is exactly what happens when that internal processing leaks out. You start displaying some incredibly weak vocal symptoms. And it usually sounds a little bit like this, right? Because you're trying to explain like every single detail so people don't misunderstand you, you start talking really fast and maybe you use some hedging language and you throw in filler words like and literally or basically, and your voice might even go up at the end of a sentence like you're asking for permission. And then you add a little nervous laugh. That chaotic, fast-paced nervous energy completely masks your actual expertise. It's the vocal fry, the uptalk, and the rambling that absolutely ruins professional presentations. And that brings us to a very harsh psychological reality, captured perfectly right here. Listeners judge your confidence within literal seconds. They are not waiting around to dig into the rich nuance of your internal thoughts. Behavioral psychology tells us that the human brain makes snap judgments about authority and trustworthiness almost instantly. When you walk into a client call, a salary negotiation, or an interview, your audience isn't grading your internal database of knowledge. They are solely judging your perceived competence based entirely on your external delivery. Now, what's really interesting here is the profound disconnect this creates. It's basically a massive translation error between you and your audience. Internally, you are practicing nuance. You're carefully calibrating your words to be truthful and exact. But externally, the perception is entirely different. The listener instantly translates that careful hesitation into a lack of authority. They don't sit there and think, wow, they're carefully considering all angles. No, they think, wow, they don't know what they're talking about. If we want to be trusted, promoted, or even just listened to, we absolutely have to bridge this gap. So, the crucial point is that we must fundamentally shift our approach. Section 1, the authority voice blueprint, shifting from what you say to how you say it. We really need to stop obsessing over what we're saying and start engineering how we say it. This right here is the hidden communication operating system used by elite leaders. It's about the physiological mechanics of sounding powerful in everyday interactions. To build that executive presence, you need to master 3 physical mechanics. Notice how my delivery just shifted. The pacing slows down significantly. You're no longer rushing to fill the space. You tap into vocal depth, dropping the resonance lower in your chest rather than keeping it tight and high up in your throat. And most importantly, you embrace strategic silence. By slowing down and lowering your pitch, you instantly signal to the listener's brain that you are calm, grounded, and completely in control of the room, even under intense pressure. Did you feel the power in that? Just a few seconds of absolute silence? It draws the listener in. It commands attention. When you use a power pause like that, instead of filling the gap with an or an ah, you project immense confidence. It shows everyone that you are so secure in your position that you don't need to frantically fill the dead air. Let's look at how this builds into your overall physical delivery. Dropping your pitch at sentence endings is absolutely vital. It completely eliminates that questioning uptalk that makes your statements sound like mere suggestions. You also need to control your confidence breathing. That means taking deep, measured breaths that actually support your voice so you don't run out of air and end up sounding panicked. Add in projected energy and steady, deliberate eye movement rather than nervously darting your eyes around the room. Together, these physical adjustments immediately stop the rambling. They physically force your body to project a calm, commanding, leader-like presence. And this brilliantly illustrates our next step. Section 2, reclaiming your authority by eliminating weak language. Once you have that physical vocal delivery locked in, you have to address the actual words you're using. Let's look at a classic example of this immediate practical application. Instead of saying, I think, you replace it with, I recommend. The psychology behind this is fascinating. I think is a tentative internal thought process. It actually invites the listener to challenge you because, hey, it's just your opinion, right? I recommend, however, is a definitive executive action. It shifts you from a passive observer to an active advisor. It instantly commands respect because it shows you've analyzed the situation and you are now confidently guiding the next steps. Here's another incredibly common trap, saying, maybe we should try versus the best option is. Removing the word maybe entirely eliminates doubt from the room. When you're giving a project update or proposing a solution, hedging with maybe makes it sound like you haven't actually done the work to figure out the right path. Stating the best option is positions you as a decisive leader who has evaluated the variables and is delivering a confident, authoritative conclusion. Now, this one is an absolute game changer, especially for folks who tend to over-apologize. Swapping sorry for the delay with thank you for your patience or thank you for waiting. When you say sorry, you instantly lower your status and take on unnecessary blame, making yourself look subservient. But by reframing that apology into gratitude, you completely reclaim your power. You acknowledge the situation, but you maintain your authority and keep the interaction on a level playing field. It's a brilliant psychological pivot for handling delays or difficult client conversations. When you combine that grounded vocal depth we talked about with these powerful phrase replacements, you suddenly have a tool set for literally any situation. You can create reusable scripts for high-stakes frameworks, like giving updates, disagreeing politely, or even negotiating your salary. Imagine knowing exactly how to enter a meeting, how to politely but firmly stop an interruption, how to confidently ask for a raise, or how to firmly close a conversation that's just dragging on. You stop reacting emotionally in the moment, and instead, you execute a proven communication framework that allows you to truly own the room. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Are you ready to command your next conversation? Look, you already have the intellect. You have the knowledge. The intelligence paradox only holds you back if you let your brilliant internal processing create external chaos. By slowing down, using strategic pauses, dropping your pitch, and swapping weak phrases for powerful executive action statements, you align your vocal delivery with your true intellect. Take these tools, practice them in your next daily stand-up or client call, and just watch how quickly the room shifts to give you the respect your ideas absolutely deserve.